Hello, welcome to Quackalope. Thank you for being here. Today I'm bringing you a Kickstarter preview, a 10 reasons you totally should back, or just a general overview of Etherstone from Thundergryph Games. Now, right off the bat, this is not a sponsored video. In fact, the campaign's already been live for a few days, and they're doing pretty well. But they have a lot more content over there, and selfishly, I want to see this game produce as much stuff as it can. I'm going to lay out very quickly the basic parameters that will mean you're interested or not interested in Etherstone. From there, we're just going to hang out and have a little bit of fun, because by that point, you should have already determined if this is going to be a game you're going to support or not. And then we'll take a look at the cards, we'll dive into it, we'll talk about the rules, we'll give you an overview, we'll do all the classic YouTube stuff. Here's your framework. If you like card drafting, boss battling or card battling, kind of card play, head-to-head skirmish style stuff, and dice drafting with cool, sometimes broken-ish powers and abilities, then Etherstone is going to be right for you. In fact, it's a game that is directly up my alley with what I think is absolutely gorgeous artwork, very ethereal, very immersive in this world of corruption and decay, with very specific subclasses and types of creatures that you're seeing come out. So as you build your hand of cards, you can kind of see how they pair and work and chain off of each other. It has some very, very satisfying dice drafting, where the dice that you take not only provides you with resources associated with the color of power that you've selected, but it also triggers, based off the color and number, abilities in the tableau that you've already built out. And it has card drafting that leads to some really healthy, very quick playing, head-to-head boss battling mechanics. You're going to be drafting a set of 7 cards. Those are going to be the cards you use for the entirety of your game session. But not for the entirety of your game, because as soon as you're done playing, you're going to want to dive back through this handful of cards and reconfigure another set or another engine or another point-scoring monstrosity to either slaughter your foes, wipe out your enemies, reducing their victory points, or harvest, collect, and store as many victory points as you can get your grubby little fingers on. I'm working with a prototype copy here. In fact, I think the game that is going to be available to you, the audience, and me one day is something around 2 to 3 times the amount of base content that I've been able to explore. But even in this base game, all this game did was left me wanting more content. So they've already answered my single biggest demand. I wanted more combinations, more cool card abilities. I wanted more leaders and bosses to pit head-to-head, more factions to figure out how I can create interesting hybrids. I wanted to be able to enhance the drafting experience and never have this become stale, because the engine here is very solid. Along with that general request for more content, there are some graphical icon overhauls that I think the publisher is going to be working on for the final print run of this copy, so I'm not going to dive into them too deeply here. I will say that the icons might be the biggest barrier to entry. I did find myself time and time again double-checking and trying to figure out what the sideways endgame scoring hourglass is. Why not use just a classic hourglass, or a persistent ability versus a when attacking ability, a big explosion versus a shield? Again, I could get into the weeds of how iconography should be fairly standardized across the board game industry to allow people like me who play games and don't want to sit down and double check player aids and rules constantly, make it easier for us to play. But I said I wasn't going to get into it too much, and there I go, talking longer than you asked me to. So, let me know down in the comments down below. Has what I said so far convinced you that this game is one that you should back? Because, selfishly, I think it is and should be on that list. That being said, let's have a little bit of fun. Let's dive into the general rules overview and then take a look at some of these cards, because really the powers, abilities, and artwork all combine to make a ethereal experience. Alright. Basic objective of Etherstone is to score as many victory points as possible. You can play this game from 2 to 4 players, and depending on the number of players, you're going to have a certain amount of victory points out in your victory point pool. That will be harvested as you play cards that have certain special powers and abilities, but there are also a lot of endgame victory possibilities or conditions. You could score victory points by completing and overcoming challenges, which are valuable resource-generating battles that you'll show down against here from this challenge deck. You could score victory points from special abilities on your cards and the abilities that you play from your hand into your tableau and remain in your tableau at the end of the game will also score you a pile of victory points. You could trigger endgame by harvesting through the available victory point pool. Now, that's not endgame scoring. That is in-game scoring victory points. There's something like 10, 12, or 15 of those. So as you do an action that gives you an in-game victory point, you'll take it away and the endgame will be a little bit closer. You could trigger endgame by running out of cards in your hand to play. Not as often of a case, but it's certainly a way that you as a player could drive down the timeline, making other people have to squabble if they have an engine that takes a little bit longer to get up and running. Or you could score end the game. You could trigger end condition by weeding through these challenge or event decks here until there's only 3 left, or the 3 that are revealed on the table are the only ones left. There's nothing left in the draw pile is what I'm trying to say. I said it 3 times in 3 different ways. Maybe you've understood me along that course. The general gameplay flow is pretty darn straightforward. You're going to start by drafting your set of cards, or by using one of the faction-specific abilities or mobs. I can show you here. We have a full faction here. We have another full faction here. You can see the colors all match up. The artwork is lovely. I didn't find that working with the scripted faction cards were the most interesting way to play the game. It does teach you a lot about your powers and abilities. It does give you a good introductory session to get started, but the drafting here is where the game starts to become so very interesting. After you know how to play the game, you'll draft for every session from that point on. You'll have a hand of 7 cards, and you'll pass that hand to the other player after you've selected one. And you start looking for connections, for combinations, for ways that you can use ether, generate numbers that'll be similar, or colors that'll be similar in your inactive player power abilities. You start looking for technology that's going to score you some special victory points, or a new way to twist the gears so you can win without actually confronting or facing off against your enemy. And of course, you're paying attention to what you generate from your starting boss. You'll typically get 2 starting bosses. You'll choose one of the 2. Then you'll draft your 7 cards. Then you're ready to play the game. On your turn, you're going to have a simple set of 5 actions. You could either draft dice, giving you color and number, triggering abilities on your tableau. Alternatively, you could summon, playing 1 card from your hand, paying the resource cost for said card. This could be a technology card, could be an ally card, like a minion that can fight for you, could be an instant immediate effect card that just annihilates your opponent or does some other really cool things. You could, alternatively, attack, choosing to either fight here in the center with one of your bosses against one of these scripted mobs or varying leveled opponents that you have, or you could also, alternatively, go up against your opponent if you have the specific ability to do that. Primarily, you're going to be fighting here in the center mob location, and here in the center mob location, you're going to be generating rewards, victory points, and in-game resources to use. You'll also be shifting from level 1 to level 2 to level 3. In a 2-player game, you'll have 3 of each, so the market will be full of level 1s, and as you whittle it down, it'll start flooding with the higher level opponents, which sometimes are worth it, and sometimes cost you a lot, because if you decide to attack with your main leader involved, they will take damage. That's fine. They can take as much damage as you want until they run to 0. If they run to 0, you're forced to do the 5th option that you have. I skipped the 4th one, but the 5th option that you have, which is the Void Pact. -7 victory points, and your leader comes back onto the table. That's fantastic. You have it, but you're a little bit weaker at the end of the game. Trust me, sometimes it is actually worth taking that punitive punishment in order to get some other good things going in your economy. And at the same time, other times it's just worth it to snipe your opponent and whittle them down so they lose 7 points and potentially another 7 points, and you win by sheer overwhelming osmosis of failure. The 4th option that you have out of these 5 options, remember, dice draft, summon, attack, or void pack. You could also rest. If you attack and you use the minions that are in your personal tableau, they will tip to the side and then they'll refresh. You can't use them multiple times. They're not irresponsible here. It is not tapping them, as Magic the Gathering would like to very specifically acknowledge. For those of you who don't know, Wizards of the Coast have some trademarks on words or rules that prohibit other companies from using them in their rules. Like the word tap, I believe, is legally binding. Okay, so that's the general flow of the game. Throughout the course of the game, you're going to have 7 cards that you drafted in your hand. You're going to have your main leader boss ability, and you're going to be generating Etherstone to play those cards into your tableau, to draft dice, to trigger special abilities, to fight with mobs that are in the center of the board, to ping off of your opponents, dealing some substantial damage to them whenever you have the chance, and ultimately trying to score as many points as possible. In a 2-player game, we found that up and running, this was maybe a 20 to 30 minute game, very, very accessible depending on how long the dice drafting is and how many players you have making decisions, right? AP always causes games to slow down. So with that, that's the general flow and breakdown of the game, so let's go ahead and look at our characters and cards. Again, they have a lot more in the Kickstarter, so I can only show you what I have here in the prototype. We have the Ancient Mother. Ancient Mother is going to have a resource starting resources down on the bottom of her board. She'll have one of the red, 2 of the green, 1 of the blue, 1 of the black, so a nice spawn. She will have her attack power, which is 0. She will have 10 health, which you'll put on your nice little dial here, and her general effect is going to be, if you attack, you will gain +2 damage for each minion you have in play. So she likes to attack with a horde of other forest folk. We have the Great Rosmundo with 6 total attack power, starting with resources of red, black, and blue, and 9 total health. He is just big, beefy, and bulky. He can rip through most level 1 events easily, but you will need help as the game progresses if you're going to lean on his strength. We have the Astral Walker with 10 health, 3 base attack, and an endgame, I believe an endgame trigger immediate trigger. Each time you summon 1 minion, flip all your minions in play. So you can summon and reset them all so they can re-engage with the battlefield or trigger special abilities, whatever it is your minion cards allow you to do. 10 health here for the Silt Judge. 3 base damage, starting with 3 resources, 2 red and a blue. This is another immediate ability. Each time you summon a card or a conditional ability, what's the actual terminology? Let me get it right. This is a persistent ability. Each time you summon a card with an odd total cost, gain 1 activation effect of 1 of your cards in play. So he's going to be able to manipulate your tableau and give you more and more activations, which can be very, very powerful if you have the right engine built. And of course we have the Soul Judge. I don't know why I said of course, you're all expecting it. Soul Judge is here. We all knew that. 3 total damage with another persistent ability, 11 total health. Each time you summon a card with a even total cost, pay -1 purple resource, or purple ember. That is going to be a wild symbol, so everything is slightly cheaper for you. Not the strongest mob you have, but you are going to be able to get a lot of your cards out to the table very quickly and very efficiently. I'm going to sprint through these real quick to show you some of the combinations, because really this drafting, this handful of cards, the 7 cards you're going to be playing with, they transform the game experience. The combinations are extremely satisfying. The game plays quick enough that if you find something that feels broken, okay, win and play again. That's the fun of drafting games. All right, we have a whole pile of cards here. I'm going to see if I can scoot some stuff over and then just keep going through them, because the artwork's nice enough. I want to keep it on the page. Basic layout of your cards, you have the general cost up here on the top. Remember, the purple is wild, so anything can be paid for that, whereas the 2 black ember here must be paid. You have the victory points it'll be worth if it's in your tableau at the end of the game, which they won't always be. And you have whatever their abilities are. I'm going to focus on their abilities from this point on. Another persistent ability, when summoning a minion, pay -1 purple. Again, a resource reduced cost. So you can already see how this might tie up here to the Soul Judge very nicely. Each time you do something, recall a card, I believe. Yep, recall, bring a card back from your tableau into your hand, which some of these cards have a specific recall mechanic. You're going to go ahead and gain a victory point and a black ember. So a victory point engine could be built off of this card alone. When an opponent attacks, they lose -1 health. Good for them. I like them losing a little bit of life, so this is going to be a guy that's just like sitting there with a spear, and if you draft a die 1 through 6, you'll go ahead and gain another black ember, so this is going to give you some very base resource generation. This is going to allow you to summon one specifically technology. You can see the symbols on the side of the card here that indicate what type of card it is. Summon one technology if you draft a die that is a 1 to a 2. Again, this is going to be a follower, so he actually has an attack power down here. He could join or go on his own to fight some of these cards I'll show you in just a moment. We have, if you draft a die with a number of 1 through 2, 1 or 2, +1, what is this symbol? Counter. So you're going to be adding little marks to this card, these little marks here. So +1 counter. If this card has 2 counters on it, destroy this card, and each opponent loses 3 health and must recall one of their choice. So if your opponent has been playing it fast and dirty with the row of cards they're fighting and their boss is right there at the edge before they heal up or gain any other benefits, you could go ahead and spike them with this, losing yourself 1 victory point but costing them 7. Moving on down, we have the Smoke Crew. This is a fun one. I played with this one in one of my builds. A persistent ability, +1 damage for each mark you have on this. You must recall this after it's used in an attack, and if you draft a die of 1 through 3, you'll add a mark to this card. So this card just continues getting bigger, stronger, and stronger. I use this to kill a level 3 boss. I'll show you one very quickly. With something like 11 health up there in the top corner. It was very nice. And I do think I won that game. Bionic Projector. This is going to happen if you draft the black die or the gray die associated with the ember that you're getting, +1 black for each minion of one opponent of your choice. So you look around the board and you're like, you're going to go ahead and grant me 3 extra black resource. We have a Z. Z abilities are instant before summoning. So some of these abilities actually happen like while they're in your hand, the moment between you playing them down. You can recall one of your minions to summon this card at no cost, +2 victory points. So this is a very nice one that is going to allow you to actually continue cycling and pulling victory points off the board. And you have an attack, +1 projection if your minion has 5 health or less, or if your leader has 5 less in health or less, +2 victory points. So another victory point generator here. Awaken Honos. This is going to be another faction specific, and you'll see the resources change, and you'll see some of the abilities shift based on the faction that's going to be playing with them. So, A, instant ability, the lightning bolt here, +2 health, or opponent loses 2 health. Again, a good decision depending on who's being the most violent at the table. Then if you draft a die of a value of 4, you'll recall a card, +2 health, or opponent will lose another 2 health. So just a life-siphoning device sitting here. Crowned Creed. We have a persistent we have an endgame ability. +2 victory points for each of your cards in play with a total cost of 4 purple or more. Endgame scoring is not going to draw from the pool, triggering endgame, but it will be a big factor to determine who actually wins. And then, of course, a 3 or 4, you'll tap this card and then write this card back up. So you won't have to do a rest action, which takes your full action turn if you've retapped your cards. Moving on down, we have the Projected Limbic. Lightning ability, immediate ability, is going to give you 2 marks. If you take any damage, you must reduce 1 mark to prevent all damage. So this is just like a massive shield for you. Transference, instant ability, +2 health. Tap this card, 1 minion will gain, or 1 boss will gain +3 health or -X health. To untap this, you'll have a it says X minion. So untap 1 minion, gain +3 health, or -1 or so you either deal damage to an opponent or take damage yourself to right and wrong this back and forth depending on the die. If you drew a 3 or 4, you can choose to do these 2 actions back and forth. Interesting. Kill a card. I've never seen or played with that one before, so there's still things I haven't experienced. Draw a 1, so draft a 1-sided die. You're going to go ahead and kill this card, -5 health to an opponent, +3 victory points if at least one opponent is defeated by this ability. So you rip apart a opponent's boss, you get yourself some sweet victory points. Implanted Extirpator. Give me the phonetic spelling of that word down below so I can read it accurately. Doubles the wild cost gained from events. Good. And your minions get, or your boss gets, +1 damage or +1 protection, which will allow you to take damage without getting hurt. Forbidden Portal, summon 1 minion, paying -2 value, and then if you draft a die of 1, destroy this card to summon 1 minion, paying -3 value. Again, it's worth 2 victory points, but sometimes that cycle is worth giving up some endgame scoring for in-game action and economy. As you can see, this purple deck here has been very focused on... the black deck was focused on setting up a resource engine and scoring points based off of manipulating the game state. Purple is very much on stealing life and giving life. So you might want to pair that with something that does a lot of damage, for instance, because then you'll be able to actually weed through this deck and score a lot of points in an alternative fashion. Lethal Concoction. When you go to an attack, +1 attack for your leader. So just a little bit stronger. Then, if you draft a die of 2 to 3, opponents will tap 1 minion or lose 2 health. So opponents are going to go ahead and take some damage. We have Acid Stream. Opponents lose 1 health. If you draft a die of a 4 to 5, you'll gain a red ember, and opponents lose -1 health. Or you could gain a coin if any opponent has is at 3 or less. So if your opponent is very weak, you can actually get a resource engine going based off of siphoning that little last bit of health from them. Etherstone. It's not Ember, apparently. It's Etherstone. That makes sense based off the name of the game, but I just say things confidently and tell you about stuff that I like, so we'll keep going. Grit Devourer. Very expensive card here, but a very helpful, handy minion. When you go to an attack, you can spend red ether to gain that much more attack. It's an open market. You can spend 10 to get 10. And if you draw a red die, you'll gain 1 extra ether to you. Unstable Fighter. Attack, again, -2 life to gain +4 attack and recall after the attack. So you'll have to pay to put it back out again, but this is a very valuable, very heavy-hitting, punchy card. The red deck, as you can see, is moderately violent. You might want to pair that with something like the purple deck that'll give you some health-generating abilities. Mud Muster. Remember, you're only going to have 7 of these cards when you play, so the combinations are really important, but also very varied. When you recall one of your cards, +1 mark, and opponent loses 1 health. If you draft a red die, +1 mark or -1 mark, and summon 1 card. That'll give you a free action. Remember, summoning's a full turn. So the quicker you can do these things and the more you can pair things together, the more efficient your turns will be. Therefore, the more you can get accomplished and the quicker you can drive endgame, leading to your eventual victory and a replay. Growth Paradox. Summoning Whisperer cards cost -1. So pairing here with the green deck. And then if you draft a 5 to 6, +1 point for each of your Whisper cards in play, plus a red. Volatile Expulsion, we have a immediate ability of +2 marks. Then if you draft a die of 5 to 6, +1 mark for each of the techs you have in play. Attack a event card or a mob card or whatever without your boss or activating any cards, spending -1, or without any minions, I think, or activating any card, spending -1 mark for 2 times damage. So allows your boss to be allows your minions to be super powerful. No, allows your boss to be super powerful. Yeah, that's what it does. So you attack a card. Oh, I see. No, it doesn't. You're not attacking with your boss or your minions. That's what is confusing me. It's a free attack based off this card alone, dealing a significant amount of damage based on the number of marks you have on this card. So it's kind of like a little grenade that you're tossing into the middle of the battlefield. Psionic Healer. If you draft a blue die, you're going to go ahead and gain +1 health. If you have 8+, gain +1 Etherstone. We have Eureka. Summon 1 card at a cost of X, where X is equal to your technology in play. So the more tech you have, the better that card will be. We have a Sodium Giant. Cannot be retapped for any reason. So you're going to need a recall ability, which this has, at a draft of a 5 to 6. Or other cards could also allow you to recall this. This is so good, though, because it's cheap and extremely powerful with a 5 attack power there. Life Mender, 1 to 2, plus 1 health for each of your... what type of card is that? One of your type of cards you have in play. Immediate effect cards? No, can't be. Minions, maybe? I'm not sure. Plus 1 point if you have 8 plus health. So, again, victory points based off the health that you have. Your minions have plus 1 damage for each of your exalted cards in play. So, pairing again with another faction. Then we have 4 to 5. If you draft a die of a 4 to 5, you can write this card. You can write 1 minion or perform an attack. So, free action either way. Enhanced consciousness. Each time you summon a minion, plus 1 victory point. And you'll go ahead and gain plus 1 health. Then, if you draft a die of 1, kill this card to gain 2 victory points, driving endgame quickly there. Transmuting Flow, plus 2 health for the immediate effect. Then draft a die of a 2 to 3, plus 1 health if your leader has the most health, plus 1 victory point. Then we have the last deck that I have here. Now, when you draft, of course, these will all be mixed and matched, and even in some of the scripted decks they have, these are mixed to match, but they're each contained within their own theme and world. As you can tell, the blue deck here dealt a lot with scoring a victory point engine off of the health that you have and generating that health for you. Spiritual markings. Each time you summon a minion, gain 1 mark. Draft a die of a 3 to 4, plus 1 mark or minus 1 mark to perform an attack. So you summon minions, you get marks, you get a free attack action. Swift Kroloff. If you draft a green die, you will untap this card. If you have the most minions in play, you'll gain a victory point as well. Aunt Duchess, a persistent effect, plus 2 damage for each mark. When this is attacking, you must remove half of the marks rounded up at the end of the attack, and then you draft a die of a 3 to 4, you get a mark. So generate marks, attack with a card, reduce them by half, but you deal a lot more damage based on how many you've accumulated. Wise Smoker, draft a die of a 6, you'll go ahead and gain a wild resource, a wild ether. Kind Shapeshifter, Ember. Ether. Kind Shapeshifter. Love this artwork. Looks like a little mink, but it's transforming into a variety of other weird, twisted things. Or a little otter, possibly. One of the two. Persistent. Plus 1 health each time you summon a minion. Draft a die of 2. Gain 1 activation effect per 1 minion of yours in play. So you're going to get more activations based on the number of minions you have, and you get bonus health for drafting them. Now, the nice thing here is if you pair this with a card that makes it so you recall minions, you can actually do that cycle multiple times. Everlasting Ritual. This allows you to, if you draft the green die here, plus 1 green Ember, Ether, untap 1 minion, plus 1 victory point if you have 2+ technology in play. Then we have finally the Pollinating, which is a immediate effect, plus 1 mark on each of your cards that already has plus 1 mark. So all those cards that had mark abilities, if you draft this at the very beginning of the game, you might just accumulate all of them so you have this whole chain of special effects. Then if you draft a die of 5 or 6, plus 1 health, plus 1 mark on each of your cards that already has plus 1 mark. You see how these cards can pair together, whether you're harvesting victory points based off the life that you have, you're stealing health from your opponent, trying to drive their victory point score down, or you're just setting up a network that gives you ether that allows you then to spend that ether on summoning minions, then recall those minions, and fighting back and forth. There's a lot of cool combinations, and the more of these we have, the more cards that get unlocked through the Kickstarter campaign, the more they reveal, the more fun drafting combinations and options we will be able to go through. Very quickly, I'll show you the event cards I have because this video is already long and I assume the people that are watching it are the people that are invested and excited about playing this game. So, welcome. Please hit that subscribe button down below. We desperately need your love, care, and support. Starting with the level 1 cards, this has a health of 7, a victory point total of 3, a damage dealt back to your leader if they're in the fight of 2, and when you destroy it, you will go ahead and get 3 green resources. Here you'll get a whole plethora of the base resources. You'll gain 2 resources, summon 1 minion paying 1 less of any resource, plus 1 mark on one of your cards in play. Recall one of your cards in play to gain 3 random resources or wild resources, and 3 victory points. This is a level 2 card now. Opponents lose 2 health, plus 3 red ether, plus 2 black ether. Again, look at the victory points up here in the corner, 6 and 4. You can see that these cards could be they could be 2/3 of your final scoring at the end of the game if you happen to be going for this type of victory strategy. But if you have an opponent that's generating victory points from the victory pool, and they're grabbing them before you're actually able to get your minions out and initiate an attack, you'll find that they actually might be able to drive end game before you're ready and you have your engine fully up and running. So reacting to your opponents is key. While Judge summon 1 card paying -3 cost, 14 health to kill though, you're going to need a whole squadron of people to go after this. I think this is a level 3 card now. It is. +1 blue, +1 black, but 6 total victory points up there in the corner. We have the Smoke Judge. Choose a dice color and number to trigger the corresponding abilities of your cards in play. That could generate you a few victory points, a few ether, a few whatever, right when you begin. Void King, +2 victory points right off the bat, helping drive endgame a little bit there. 16 total health, though, which is monstrous. But you score 7 plus, that's a 10 victory point swing if you're the one to take out this card. Sodium Graveyard, we have +2 blue. And then finally, we have Failed Rebirth. This is +1 green, +1 red. Untap all of your minions, which means you're ready to go in for another attack right there at the beginning. I've literally now showed you everything I have in this prototype to display and to show off how cool this game is. So thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. I was trying to get a full gameplay to the channel before the campaign has ended. I don't know that we're traveling for the holidays here soon, and I don't know that we will have the window necessary to go ahead and get a 2, 3, or 4 player down to the table and get it edited and produced in time. But down the road, hopefully when this is published, I'd love to come back to this game, dive into the factions, the abilities, and get like a series of gameplay videos built around it, because I really have enjoyed the way you combine and make the puzzle fit together on the table in front of you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Whatever the case, though, whatever you do, remember to do the important thing. Drink tea when it's cold outside. It's good for your throat, keeps you hydrated, and if you need caffeine, it's also an excellent source of healthy caffeine. We'll see you later.